All right. So tonight's meditation topic is patience, which is not a very exciting or sexy topic, but I'm going to make it that way, as I always do. So the idea came up because, how did this come up? It says something to do with one of the challenges or the question or something? Oh yeah, thank you. That's why it came up. So I went to Tijuana. Who's been to Tijuana before? Oh God, never go. No, and the town is fine. I had a lovely visit, and I went just for a short, trip on Saturday, spent the night, and then was headed back on Sunday. And I thought, oh, we got plenty of time. This Google Maps says it's only going to take about 50 minutes to get across the border to San Diego. So maybe we'll just go down, visit Rosarito, the little town south, and just take our time. And on the way back up, get into line at the border, and it still says it's going to take 50 minutes to get across. And I think, okay, well, this is a bad line, but it's not that bad. I'm just sitting in line, and we're not moving at all. I'm just sitting in the car in the same spot and starting to get a little bit anxious. Like, did somebody die in their car up there? Is there like a serious crackdown, even more so at the border, where they're just like not letting anybody in, and the car, we're just inching along ever so slowly, and it takes 2 hours to get from the beginning of one block to the end of that block. And this is not like people cutting us off or anything crazy happens. It's just a line of cars as far as you can see, and nobody's moving. Just sitting in the car. And after 2 hours, I'm starting to think, well, I mean, the line is clearly moving, but Google Maps is not accurate right now. This is going to take a while. And sure enough, it takes 8 hours to get across the border. So got in line at 1:30, it was 9 hours. What's from 1:30 to 10:30? Yeah, it was 9 hours. It took 11 hours to get home, 9 hours to get across the border, 2 hours to get from the border all the way back up, because by the time we got across the border, there was no traffic anywhere else. And it is like a circus down there, so it's actually quite entertaining. There are all kinds of people, there are kids jumping on each other's shoulders and juggling, and people selling all kinds of weird stuff. And I was out of pesos, and they were trying to charge too much American dollars, so I didn't buy anything. But it was about as interesting as you could imagine for sitting in a car not moving for 9 hours. And it got me thinking about patience. And so I quick looked up the definition of patience. According to Webster, I think is the ability to deal with delay and suffering without getting upset, without getting irritated at it. Now that doesn't seem to make sense to me, because I think the suffering itself is like the irritation. And you guys have heard me talk about the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is like it's going to happen to all of us, and suffering is the part that you're choosing. If you're taking it personally, if you're getting into this whole thing with your ego, like, why is this happening to me, and when is this going to be done, and all that stuff, that's all part of suffering. But in any case, the ability to deal with this delay without getting really irritated with it is incredibly important. And it's important in our practice, in our physical practice, in our Tai Chi, in our meditation on lots of different levels. But I talk about it in two main ways, two main levels. The big picture level of patience is more of what I talk about when we go over the 5 ways of becoming great at martial arts: patience, perseverance, practice hard, practice exactly what you want to perform, and meditation. The first way, patience, I'm usually referring to this idea of it's going to take a long time, over a long time, it's going to, be slow progress, and then eventually you become great. And a lot of people, they come into the dojo and they ask me, how long is it going to take me to get a black belt? How long is it going to take me to get great? And I say, that's the wrong question to be asking, because if you're already thinking about that, it's going to be really, really a lot of suffering for you, because you're always going to be expecting to get to wherever it is that you're expecting to get faster than it's going to take. It's going to take longer than you want. And you got to be great with that. You've got to be very patient on the big scale, because if you're not patient, you will always be in this state of frustration and like wondering, why is it taking me so long? And is there something wrong with me? It is something wrong with you. It's that you're being impatient, so chill out. And then there's the other level that I talk about with patience, which is the like moment to moment patience. And this is really what we deal with during class. Of course, you'll be in class and you'll be terrible at something. You'll try a technique that's difficult, and you'll think to yourself, I've been doing this for years and I still can't get it. What's wrong with me? You can take yourself into the long-term patience, but mostly it's like, in this moment here, I've got to be patient with myself doing this technique right now. And oftentimes, it's a drill like what we've been doing in class this week, a few different versions of the same basic concept, which is, when I'm being patient, I have a clear mind. There is no thought of anxiety of I have to do it now, of, for example, in this last class, you are waiting for your partner to show you the mitt, which is your target, and when they show you that target, that's when you throw your strike. And it's the same thing in sparring, for example. If there's no opening and you try to hit the opening that isn't there and you're trying to force it, it's not going to work. We don't generally force things to work. We allow it to happen. So when we're patient, then the opening appears. Oftentimes because our partner gets impatient, right? So you might be sparring or grappling with somebody or doing push hands in Tai Chi, and this person starts to get frustrated, and so they overcommit. They do something that is kind of taking themselves off balance or exposing. One of my favorite stories about this is Sifu Brown, my teacher, practiced in Shaolin Temple with the monks several times. He went back and practiced with them, and he practiced with, I think he said, a 35th generation Shaolin monk, Master Yu. And he was just an amazing martial artist and practiced lots of different things that we do in class, including some of the forms and the weapons and stuff. But he, bowed in to spar with him once, and he was just standing there waiting, because Sifu Brown already had years of martial arts experience at that point, and he knew, well, a good mindset to have when you're sparring, especially when somebody is good, is to be patient and wait and see what they do, and then try to see the opening and counter. And he was just waiting there, and Master Yu was just standing there and waiting there, and they were both just waiting. And this is what it would be like to watch two great martial artists who are not just doing like a sparring drill, but really are in that moment kind of embodying what we're looking for in that type of practice, where my goal is to wait, and in the moment that my partner acts, I respond to it. I'm not guessing or anticipating. I'm not up in my head at all. And so Sifu Brown describes this like he started off doing that, and then he got impatient and he got in his own head, and he thought, well, I better do something or we're just going to stand here and stare at each other. So he threw his fastest, best back fist right at Master Yu's nose, and Master Yu got out of the way and put him in a chin-on, and he was like this. Where did that come from? And that was Sifu Brown's back fist. So your back fist is probably not as good, and you're going to get chin-on too. But the whole idea here is you want the option, at least, to be able to be in the moment, totally present, and wait as long as it takes, because that opening might happen now, or they might just stand there and wait for your opening. And usually in class, most often, I will tell you that that is not what I want you to do, because if you're really working on that and your partner's working on that, then you will just stand there and stare at your partner until class is over, and then you bow and say, that was great, and then you go and class is done. And it could actually have been a great experience for you if you really were able to just stand there and be totally present and not, drop your guard or lean too much in any direction that would create an opening for your partner. That would be incredible. Practically speaking, that's not what's going to happen. Someone's going to get impatient after the first couple of minutes at least and do something. And so what we try to do is have it be a give and take. I'm attacking sometimes, my partner's attacking sometimes, and when I'm waiting for my partners to attack, I'm waiting. Or I'm waiting for them to move in or show me an opening or something. Same thing in push hands. I'm doing push hands with my partner, and it cannot be, unless I specify this in the drill, it cannot be I'm only defending and only waiting for my partner. I've got to be able to push and commit sometimes. But make no mistake, that in that moment is you committing so that your partner can practice. And the real idea there is, like, when I attack, if I do it from impatience, the attack is not going to work very well. So I want to do it from a mental state of, I'm very calm, I'm waiting, and then either I see an opening or I choose, this is time for me to attack, so that I can create that energy that we practice with our partner. This kind of mindset of just being totally calm and in the moment is very much like Mushin, where I have no thoughts, no agitation, no guessing or anticipation. I'm just waiting there. And from that, an attack could come forward naturally, or you might just wait. If you're grappling with somebody, this is a really common thing that people struggle with, is I'm grappling and I'm in my partner's guard and they're just squeezing really tight, they're holding me and I can't do anything about it. And so a lot of people start to panic and they start to push and they try to force this thing, and that creates an opportunity for their partner to do something worse to them. But if you just wait, oftentimes it's your partner that acts, they open up their guard, they take away their control, and that's the moment where you respond. And all of this is really contingent on your mental state. So I describe this mental state as a perfectly taut fishing line. And if you've never been fishing before, you can think of it as some other kind of line, but it's something thin, string-like. And if you're fishing, I used to go bait fishing all the time. Back in New Jersey, my friend taught me how to fish, and we would get a worm and gruesomely stick it on the hook and drop it down to the bottom of the canal or the river with a weight on it, and we'd reel in the line so that it's perfectly taut. It's just a straight line going down to the bottom, and then as soon as the fish started going after the bait, you'd feel it, because you could actually see the tip of the pole start going like this, and you know that the fish is on the line, and then you crank on it and you reel it in, and it's all contingent on that perfectly taut line that is not overly tense or overly relaxed. Way more often than catching a fish, I'd get my bait or my lure stuck on a log that was under the water, and I'd really crank on it hard, and it would snap the line. And that is what we do with our minds and our bodies very often in class and out there in the rest of the world. We will be overly anxious. We will not be patient enough, and we snap. And that snaption could just be, acting too fast. It could be I'm dealing with somebody, I'm in this conversation, or I'm standing in line or whatever, and I get impatient, and so I start to, you start to feel yourself like getting hot in the face. You start to feel the tension in your body, or you don't even feel any of that stuff because you're all up in your head thinking all the terrible thoughts that you're having. I can't believe this is happening right now. How come these idiots can't get their stuff together and like move this line along? And all that stuff, you've already snapped. And that's like the one side of it. The physical way that works out in class is like when you're doing this drill where you're waiting for me to count and you jump the count because you are in your head trying to think, or you get in that kind of rhythm and you go too soon because your mind is not perfectly attached with the right amount of tension, which is pretty much nothing. You are attached with too much tension that causes you to snap and to act too early. The other side of the spectrum is not the same as being impatient. It's like I'm so lazy that I'm no longer connected to the moment. So this is like if you imagine the fishing line, instead of being taut, it's kind of just like lazily spiraling down. So there's no tension to the weight or to the fish. And so by the time you recognize that the fish is on the line, it's already taken the bait and left because you never saw the tip of the pole going like this. That's like you're waiting in class and I count and you go, oh, and then you throw the punch. Or you're waiting with sparring with your partner and you're standing there and you're probably thinking about something else, and then they zing you with their punch and they get you and you go, oh. So this is not right. You don't want to get zung in the face with a punch, and you don't want to go too early and snap. So patience, the right way to be patient is to be completely connected to the moment. And this is so difficult because our minds, when there's not enough happening, our minds start to wander and start to make stuff up. And it might make up like, he's about to count, I swear. Or it might make up like, I'm bored with this, so I'm going to start thinking about something else. I start thinking about what's for dinner, or I start thinking about how I messed up the last count, or whatever it is. Because in that silence, in that moment where nothing is happening, our minds get impatient and start, doing something with that. So it is a lot easier to be in movement. Tai Chi is a great way of experiencing this, where I'm connected to the moment with my breath, but also with the movement of my body. So it's less likely that my mind wanders. I want to be able to do this in everyday life. Most often, you're doing something at work, you're typing, and then you get bored and your mind wanders and you start to do something else. Either you physically go do something else, or mentally you're doing something else. This happens in meditation, obviously. This is like the first thing that happens in meditation. After you sit down, your mind gets bored and it starts to go do something else. And so we're trying to constantly bring it back to this moment. I was running a kids class, I think it was 2 days ago. No, yesterday. And this kid is a great kid. He's really trying hard, and he's got some challenges, and I believe he's on the spectrum, probably Asperger's. And he gets easily kind of freaked out by loud noises, and kind of likes to just speak his mind. As soon as he thinks of something, he says it. And so we'll be in class, and he'll say, "I'm tired," and everyone else is just standing there like trying to, and they're like, and this, these are 5-6-year-old kids. And the other day in class, I was yelling, and it was kind of distressing him a little bit. And so he's going like this, and he goes, "I gotta go pee." And this is something that, first of all, most kids, they don't tell me that they gotta go. They just, you can see from their body language that they do, or rarely they just go. So there's no warning at all. So I appreciate a kid who tells me when they need to go to the bathroom. But in this instance, I know that he didn't need to go because he had just gone to the bathroom. And so he says it, and I recognize in that moment what's happening for him is he's in this uncomfortable situation where he's hearing this, this loud sound, it's stressing him out, and so his mind makes something up. I gotta get out of here. Something's gotta happen. And so what comes to his mind is, I could try going pee. That got me out of here last time. And so he just says it. And I said to him, I don't think you actually need to because you just went. Am I right? And he's like, uh-huh. So I said, it's okay, just stay here and do your best. And that got me to thinking about, that's kind of what we all do on some level. It doesn't usually make it out of our mouths, but we get distracted by something. And it has the same basic effect on us, right? We're in this uncomfortable silence or this, whatever the uncomfortable situation is, and our mind does not want to be there. So our mind makes something up for us to be distracted by. And we go with it because, God, it's more exciting or less painful than whatever it is that we're dealing with. And meditation is no different from that. You're sitting and meditating, and it is on some level kind of painful to just, physically painful, to sit there and not move, but also mentally to sit there and have to focus on your breath, or to just be there in your own company and not have anything to distract you from all of those terrible thoughts that you have when you sit there and there's nothing going on. So that is an uncomfortable situation for us. So our minds go to something. And part of our practice in meditation is to recognize that is being impatient. Impatient in this moment, impatient with the whole process. And so, nope, I get that that's what you want to do, but I'm going to come right back to here. I'm going to be patient with this. Be in this moment with this breath. And it is something that we train our minds to do. It is not natural at all, especially, growing up the way that we grow up now in this world, in this society, with all of these constant distractions and all of this, sensory input. It's overwhelming, and it overloads us. And now, I used to catch myself watching TV and on my cell phone at the same time, and I thought, this is just the ultimate of depravity. I can't even believe that I've sunken this low. And so now I have to make myself not look at my cell phone while I'm watching TV. And it's very easy for me to do that because of all my years of meditation and getting myself to be able to do what I want to do. It's quite easy for me to just focus on TV when that's what I want to do, or slightly less easy sometimes, but to be able to focus on whatever it is that I want to do. But I certainly wouldn't have been there naturally. So all of the years of practice that we put into in class, in that moment, waiting for the count, the mind wanders, we come back. We start making stuff up. We start anticipating. We start thinking, my partner threw that left twice, so now they're going to throw the right. And I recognize that's just something that my mind is making up in this moment because there's nothing going on. I got to be okay with there being nothing going on and just be there. Be patient. And when we meditate, we constantly recognize our mind wanders because any kind of thought is more entertaining than just watching the breath and focusing on one thing. And so as soon as we recognize our mind wanders, we bring it back. And we do this, probably millions of times before we die and before we get good at it. And maybe we never get as good as we want to be at it. But really, this is what meditation is on some level, is a practice in patience. And if you can be patient with yourself in meditation on the long term, on the biggest level, you'll recognize, in the beginning, you'll make some pretty decent progress where your mind is able to be calmer for more time, and you're able to stay focused on the breath. You make big progress early on, but then it kind of starts to taper off, and you seem like you're not making any progress at all, and sometimes you seem like you're getting worse. But you zoom out on this process and you recognize that there's ups and downs, but generally you're getting better. And if you can be patient with that process in meditation, which is so difficult, really, C.F. Brown used to say the highest level of human activity, meditation, it is the highest level because it is so hard. Then you can do that with anything else. You can recognize that, for me it was both with my meditation and my physical practice. I recognized that I was bad when I started. I made progress, fast progress and then slow progress, but constant, never-ending improvement. I realized I can do that with anything else that I do. Whatever it is that I'm struggling with right now, I can be patient and apply that same process and it works. And then also in the moment, that patience where right now my mind wants to wander, but right now in my meditation I train my mind to come back to the breath, to come back to the visualization or whatever it is that I'm using. And it is rewiring and creating these habits, the physical habits and the mental and emotional habits that we want. Patience is not easy. It should not be easy for you or for anybody else. And so you got to remember to be patient with everybody else in your life as well. But with practice, it does become easy. In fact, it becomes second nature. It becomes just the way that we are. And with that patience, then anything is possible. Because okay, I don't have it now, and I might not have it tomorrow, next week, or next month, or next year, but I will eventually get it. And I'm even okay with never getting it. Because that's what patience has taught me. I'm okay with things the way that they are now, without having to make anything up, without having to, wander with my mind into all this stuff. And that's what your mind does is you get impatient and you start saying to yourself, I don't have it now, so that means that I'm never going to get it. All of that is fantasy. All of that is something that you have made up. So we practice that now. Let's practice that with our meditation. You're going to sit still and you're not going to move. Your body's going to want you to move because it's impatient, and you've got to just have yourself sit. Your mind is going to want to move, and it's going to move, and it's going to go off and explore all kinds of nonsense, and then you just come right back to this moment, to this breath. Sit, comfortable.